Marine bought a $5 shack. What the German shepherd guarded under the floor changed everything. People said the ridge only kept secrets, never gave them up. But the night Cole Harlow heard a wounded German shepherd growl at men who weren't supposed to exist, he understood something no one else did. The dog wasn't protecting the cabin. He was protecting a truth someone had already died for, and by the time Cole realized he'd stepped into another man's unfinished war, it was far too late to walk away. Cole Harlow had driven 6 hours without turning on the radio. Silence suited him now. The kind that wasn't peace, but the absence of anything left to break. When he finally reached the crooked trail that cut along West Virginia Ridge, the gravel cracked beneath his tires like dry bones. The thick manila envelope sat on the passenger seat. It had arrived 3 days ago, hand-delivered by a private executor who had spent months tracking him down. Inside was a deed, a key, and a note. "Your father is owed a debt. This pays it." No other explanation, just coordinates to a shack on West Virginia Ridge. Exactly what he wanted, a place no one would look for him. He stepped out of the truck, boots sinking into damp earth. The shack stood at the tree line like something time had tried to erase but failed. The roof sagged, boards warped, windows grey with dust. But there was a stillness around it that made the air feel heavier than the altitude alone. Then he saw him. A German shepherd stood on the porch, planted squarely in the doorway. Male. Broad chest. Scars cutting across the ribs and flank like old battles had chosen him as a canvas. His coat was rough, patchy, sunburnt and winter-bitten at the same time. His stance wasn't wild. It was disciplined, rigid, trained. Cole stopped mid-step. His body reacted before his mind caught up. Weight evenly distributed. Eyes soft, not direct. Hands visible. Old instincts from another life, from another war, slid back into place like a weapon he had never fully laid down. The dog didn't growl, didn't blink. He just stared as if evaluating whether Cole was threat or ghost. Cole lowered his pack, slow and quiet. "I'm not here to take your place. Just need a roof, no neighbors." The dog didn't shift. His breath came low and measured. A soldier holding a line that wasn't his to surrender. Cole eased himself down onto the bottom porch step. They were 3 boards apart, but it felt like a mile of uncharted ground. The wind brushed through the pines behind him, but the quiet between man and dog felt like the mountain holding its breath. Then he heard it, a soft, fragile whimper from inside the shack. Another. Then the tiny shuffle of something that hadn't learned the world's dangers yet. Pups. The shepherd's ears flicked, not toward Cole but toward the doorway. His posture changed. Not aggression, exhaustion. The kind that came from standing guard too long. Cole exhaled. "You're not alone." The shepherd stepped aside half a stride. Not permission, not surrender, a decision. Cole rose slowly, moved to the threshold, but didn't enter. The air inside smelled of old pine, dust, and the faint musk of wet fur. In the far corner, curled in a nest of torn blankets, were 3 small bodies, eyes barely open, breathing in fragile, unsteady rhythms. Cole's chest tightened. Not wonder, not sorrow, something between. Behind him the shepherd took his place again, this time beside Cole, not between him and the pups. Cole stepped back onto the porch. The dog followed with a precision that wasn't canine instinct. It was tactical. The daylight began to thin. The ridge swallowed the sun fast, pulling cold down from the heights. Cole tugged his jacket tighter. He could have gone inside. The deed said the shack was his, but the silent soldier in front of him said otherwise, so he stayed outside. Night dropped like a curtain. The temperature fell harder. Cole lit a small fire in a ring of cracked stones and warmed his hands over it, watching the flames flicker in the shepherd's eyes. The dog never slept. only shifted positions to keep both the door and Cole in sight. Cole reached into his inner pocket and took out a worn photo. His wife's red hair caught the sun. His son's arms spread wide, reaching for the camera like the world was simple and safe. They were gone now, lost to a driver who hadn't seen the light turn red. He stared at the picture until his eyes burned. This place was supposed to be quiet enough to bury the noise, a $5 sanctuary. But now it held something else. He felt the shift before he heard it. The shepherd went rigid, head up, eyes locked on the dark tree line. Cole turned, muscles coiled, crunching footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from the pines. A man appeared between the trees, mid-30s, sweaty, nervous, backpack slung over one shoulder. He froze when he saw the shepherd, hands lifting on instinct. Cole stepped forward. "You lost?" The man swallowed hard. "I thought this place was empty." Cole didn't respond. The shepherd moved again, this time stepping in front of Cole with a quick, controlled motion. It wasn't threat. It was protocol. The stranger took a step back. "I was surveying. There's metal deposits around here. My company—" Cole cut him off. "Nothing here for you." The man nodded too quickly, stumbling over his words as he retreated into the trees. He didn't look back. Cole waited until the forest swallowed him. Then he looked at the shepherd. "You knew before I did?" The dog didn't blink, didn't soften, but something in the air shifted. Recognition, maybe, or the first hint of an alliance born from necessity rather than trust. Cold settled deeper into the ridge as the fire dimmed. The pups whimpered again inside the shack. The shepherd's ears twitched. Cole watched the dog watching the world. That was when he realized the truth. The German shepherd wasn't guarding a shack. He wasn't guarding pups. He was guarding something else entirely. Something buried deeper than the roots of the ridge. Something the stranger had been searching for. Cole didn't know it yet, but the $5 he'd spent had just bought him a war he hadn't planned to fight. And the dog beside him already knew the first shot had been fired. Cole didn't step inside the shack that first night. Something about the shepherd's stance, the quiet authority in his posture, told him the place belonged to someone long before a $5 auction slip ever said otherwise. So he pitched a small camping tent under the warped awning, just far enough not to intrude, close enough to show he wasn't running. The dog lay across the doorway, blocking the entrance with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Every breath was steady, measured. His ribs rose and fell in a slow rhythm that matched the forest. No snarl, no warning, just presence. Cole's fingers brushed the cold steel of his mug as he watched him. "You look like a Rex," he murmured. The shepherd didn't look his way, but his ear twitched. A tiny movement, almost imperceptible, but enough. Cole knew military posture when he saw it. The dog stood like Marines did during night watch, feet planted, weight balanced. No wasted effort. "Rex," Cole repeated under his breath. Just a name, a placeholder, but it fit. The ridge had no moon that night, only the firelight brushing across Rex's scarred flank. The scars bothered Cole more than he expected. They weren't from wild fights, not random. They were straight lines, burn marks, shrapnel cuts, injury patterns he had seen in canine units overseas, a soldier's wounds. Cole tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, the memory clawed back. The intersection, the crushed metal, the sirens that didn't come fast enough, the silence afterward. He had survived Afghanistan only to lose everything on a quiet American road. When the ache grew sharper, he reached into his bag and pulled out the photograph. Folded corners, faded colors, his wife's laugh frozen in time, their son mid-stride beside her. For a long moment, he just stared. The fire crackled. Cold air pressed against his back. He clenched the picture until the edge bit into his skin. From the doorway, Rex lifted his head. Cole noticed the shift immediately. Rex watched him, not tense, but reading him the way trained dogs read pain they can't smell, eyes glowing gold in the dim light. He didn't approach, didn't close distance, just kept vigil. Cole whispered, "You don't have to guard me." Rex blinked once, slow, deliberate, the kind of response that wasn't obedience, but acknowledgement. Hours passed in quiet. The forest moved in soft currents around them, and Rex didn't sleep. He seemed to drift between two worlds, one ear angled toward the pups inside, the other toward Cole outside. A soldier guarding two fronts. Near midnight, Cole heard a sound that prickled the back of his neck, a twig snapping, too sharp to be an animal, too heavy. Rex stood instantly, body stiff, head pivoting towards the woods. Not barking, not growling, just ready. Cole rose quietly, the marine in him resurfacing with frightening ease. He scanned the dark tree line. Nothing moved, but the silence had changed. Charged, waiting. Then, as suddenly as it came, the tension eased. Rex relaxed, but only slightly. Cole felt the message in that posture. Not danger, not yet. But something was out there, something Rex didn't trust. Cole sat again, but sleep wouldn't come. He kept one hand near the tent zipper, the other resting on the pack where he'd tucked a small knife out of habit. Rex resumed his place at the door, gaze deep in the woods. Around dawn, the ridge brightened with a pale wash of gold. Cole opened his eyes to find Rex exactly where he'd been, watching, breathing slow, still standing his line. Cole pushed himself upright. Morning breath fogged in the cold air. "You stayed up all night," he said softly. Rex flicked an ear. Cole walked a few steps away from the shack to stretch his back. That was when he noticed something he hadn't seen the day before. A thin line in the dirt behind the cabin. Subtle but intentional. A path. Not from animals. From boots. Repeated steps. Circular, deliberate. A patrol route. Cole crouched and touched the tracks. They were old, but not by much. Maybe a week, maybe less. Someone had walked this loop every day. Same direction, same pattern, the kind of habit you make when you expect trouble. He looked back at Rex. "You weren't guarding a house, were you?" Rex stood completely still. Then he took one slow step toward Cole. Not aggressive, not defensive. Almost as if he were considering whether to share the truth. But the moment broke when a faint whimper came from inside the cabin. Rex turned immediately, returning to the doorway with practiced certainty. The pups woke hungry, and Rex nuzzled them through the torn blankets without a sound. Cole watched the scene. The fierce sentinel outside was now a patient father inside. Two sides of the same soldier. Cole brewed coffee with trembling hands. The steam curled into the cold morning, the bitterness grounding him. Rex stood in the threshold again, this time watching him the way a Marine watches another Marine at dawn. Quiet understanding. No words needed. Cole lifted his mug slightly. "Rex, huh? Guess we're both here because life didn't give us anywhere else to go." Another ear flick. Another silent acknowledgement. And then a twist Cole never expected. As he gathered wood near the back wall, his boot nudged something buried under a strip of soil. A smooth edge. Not natural. He brushed away the dirt and found a piece of carved cedar, part of a small box corner. The same cedar scent that faintly carried through the shack. It wasn't random. It wasn't trash. It was buried on purpose. Cole straightened, pulse ticking faster. Rex had appeared beside him without a sound. His posture had shifted again. Not warning, not fear. Readiness. As if he had been waiting for Cole to find exactly this. Cole stared at the dog. Rex stared back. Whatever was under this mountain wasn't just something the dog protected. It was something someone had died trying to keep hidden. And for the first time, Cole felt the weight of the ridge settle over him, not as a refuge, but as the beginning of something he hadn't chosen. Rex stepped closer, just enough that his shoulder brushed Cole's leg. A soldier choosing his next commander, a guardian passing on the line. By the third morning, Cole finally forced himself to walk behind the cabin. If he was going to stay here, even temporarily, he needed to know what he was standing on. The sun was barely breaking across West Virginia Ridge when he pushed through a thicket of brush and stepped into a patch of soft dirt behind the sagging back wall. That was when he saw it. Footprints, deep, deliberate, repeated, not the scattered paths of deer or the zigzag claw marks of foraging raccoons. These were straight lines, reinforced at the heel and ball of the foot. Human. Same direction. Same length. Same pressure. Over and over. A patrol loop. Cole crouched, fingers brushing the soil. The prints weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. Maybe a week. Maybe days. Whoever had been here moved with purpose, not curiosity. Rex appeared at his side without a sound. The dog didn't sniff the prints. He didn't need to. His posture tightened instantly, the way a trained warrior recognizes the ghost of another. Cole followed the loop with his eyes, started at the back corner of the shack, circled 50 yards into the trees, returned along the ridge line. Each time, the perimeter narrowed around the cabin like someone had been guarding it. "You knew," Cole whispered. Rex didn't look at him. Instead, his gaze locked on the trees ahead, waiting for something that hadn't yet shown itself. Cole stood, the weight in his chest shifting from curiosity to unease. A $5 shack didn't come with secrets, but this one was full of them. He took a step towards the tree line, meaning to follow the tracks deeper. Rex blocked him. Not aggressively, just enough to say, "Think first." Cole didn't argue. He knew the language of caution. He circled back toward the porch, scanning the ground for more signs. That was when he saw the second thing. A thin line carved into the dirt near the foundation, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. A dragging mark, long, straight. Something had been pulled across this ground, or dragged. Cole felt the air change, quieter, heavier. He turned slowly. Rex's ears shot forward. Someone was approaching. Cole's eyes narrowed, scanning the woods. Footsteps. Slow, calculated. Branches shifting in ways the wind alone could not explain. He moved closer to the porch, keeping Rex in his peripheral vision. A figure emerged between the pines. Man. Early 40s. Backpack. Clipboard. Dirt-streaked boots. His shirt was tucked too neatly, his smile too fast. His eyes darted from the cabin to Rex before settling on Cole. "Morning," the man said, breath hitching on the last syllable. "I didn't think anyone lived up here." Cole didn't answer. Rex stepped in front of him, muscles locked, chest low, every inch of him drawn tight like a wire. The man froze, hands lifting reflexively. "Easy," he said, voice cracking. "I'm with Ridge Geological Survey. We're charting mineral shifts along the ridge, just doing my rounds." Cole didn't move. His instincts flicked through the details. No survey tags on the pack, no county badge, boots too clean for someone hiking ridge trails, and no notes on the clipboard, just a blank sheet. "What mineral shifts?" Cole asked. The man hesitated. His gaze darted to the shack, to the ground, then back to Cole. "Oh, you know, just standard tectonic mapping, baseline readings. Then why come through the backwoods instead of the main trail?" Cole pressed, a beat too long. The man swallowed. Rex stepped closer, teeth showing not in a snarl, but in a silent warning. Not one step more. The stranger shifted his weight, nearly tripping over a root. "Look, I must have the wrong coordinates. Sorry to bother you." He took 2 steps backward, hands still raised. Won't happen again. He turned, walking fast. Too fast for someone who claimed he was lost. Cole watched him disappear through the trees, his nerves tight as steel wire. The wood swallowed him, but the unease didn't lift. The man had moved like he knew exactly where he was, and exactly what he was looking for. Cole exhaled slowly. That wasn't a surveyor. He glanced down at Rex. The shepherd wasn't watching the path the man had taken. He was staring at the ground near the cabin foundation, the dragging mark, the faint, buried line. Cole followed his gaze. Something had been hidden here, something the stranger had expected to find. Suddenly, the $5 shack felt less like a forgotten relic, and more like a trap door into someone else's unfinished fight. The kind that didn't end cleanly. The kind that left dogs scarred and men missing. Cole straightened. Rex stepped to his side, touching his leg with his shoulder for the first time. A small gesture, but unmistakable. They were standing on a secret someone had died trying to protect. And whatever that man had come looking for, he wasn't finished yet. The rain came hard that afternoon, pushing Cole back inside the porch for shelter. He had planned to reinforce the collapsed beam along the back wall, if only to stop the roof from folding in on itself. Rex stayed near the doorway as usual, positioned like a sentry caught between 2 duties, watching the pups inside and the tree line outside. Cole knelt beneath the sagging crossbeam, running his hand along the rotten wood. The grain crumbled under his fingers. When he reached for a replacement plank, his boot struck something that didn't sound like earth or stone. A dull, hollow knock. He froze. Rex's head snapped toward him instantly. Cole brushed away the loose dirt. Beneath the soil lay the edge of something square. Wood, but smoother than the decaying boards around it. He scraped the ground with his fingers, revealing the full shape of a cedar box, sealed tight with time and secrecy. Rex stepped closer, his body rigid, ears forward. Not threatening Cole, but bracing for what might surface. Cole lifted the box free. It was heavier than it looked. The cedar smelled faintly of resin and something colder, something metallic. The brass clasp was green with age, but intact. For a moment, Cole just held it, feeling the weight of it settle in his hands. He unlatched the clasp. The lid creaked open. Inside lay a world that did not belong in a $5 shack. Not forgotten, not abandoned. A leather-bound field journal, pages swollen at the edges from humidity. Next to it, a stack of high-resolution satellite photos snapped from angles no civilian drone could reach. A folded topographic map lined with handwritten coordinates. A slim metal USB drive with a strip of tape across it, marked only with a single number. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope, white paper yellowed at the corners. Written across the front in sharp ink. Cole Harlow. If you are reading this, I'm gone. Cole felt the air thin. The executor hadn't lied. This wasn't a random inheritance. It was a deployment order. Kepler hadn't just left him a shack. He had recruited him from beyond the grave. This ridge was supposed to be a place the world forgot. Slowly he opened the envelope. Rex lay down but stayed alert, eyes fixed on the pages as if he could recognize what was written there. Cole read the first line. Cole, if this letter has reached you, then what I feared has already happened. The handwriting was sharp, steady, deliberate. A scientist's script, a soldier's weight. I am Simon Kepler. For 12 years, I served as a senior geologist for Federal Environmental Oversight. Before that, I served with your father in the Middle East. He saved my life near Jalalabad, told me I would repay the debt one day. I did not expect it to be like this. Cole's grip tightened. His father almost never spoke about the old deployments, only saying most debts in war went unpaid because the men who carried them didn't return. Kepler continued. I stayed on this ridge for nearly 8 months after uncovering something beneath the bedrock. Something rare, something unstable. If it is disturbed, the entire water system feeding West Virginia Ridge will collapse. Every creek, every well, every acre of forest. Gone. A mineral deposit. A threat disguised as treasure. Whatever lay underground, someone wanted it enough to erase anyone who stood in the way. Cole turned the page. You are reading this because I could no longer hold my post, and because you are the one man I trust to finish what your father started. Not the fight, the protection. Cole swallowed. A slow burn rose in his chest, the kind that came when grief mixed with duty. His eyes drifted to the last paragraph. If I did not make it, trust the dog. He knows the paths I used. He knows the danger better than any human. I trained him for this. He will not leave the ridge. He will not leave the truth. Cole lowered the letter, staring at Rex. The shepherd was watching him with an expression that felt too knowing. His body was steady, unflinching, as if waiting for Cole to arrive at a realization he already understood. You were his, Cole whispered. Rex didn't blink, didn't move. But something softened in the line of his shoulders, the tension ebbing for the first time since Cole arrived. Cole looked back at the contents of the box. The journal, the maps, the USB, evidence someone would kill for, evidence someone already had. He flipped open the leather journal. The pages were crammed with data points, sketches of cave systems, seismic readings, warnings scribbled in red ink. Beneath those notes were entries that chilled him more than any mineral deposit could. Saw lights near the ridge, unmarked vehicles, men tracking patterns around the cabin. Someone inside county office tipped them off. If they find the core sample, they will drill. If they drill, the ridge dies. Cole exhaled through his teeth, quiet but sharp. This wasn't a shack. It was an outpost, a final line held by one man and one dog. And now it was his. Lightning flickered far beyond the ridge, a storm brewing in the distance. Cole stood slowly, the letter still in his hand. Rex rose with him, matching his movement, matching the gravity in the air. Cole had come here to disappear. Instead, he'd stepped into a life that wasn't finished yet, a debt passed from father to son, from scientist to soldier, from soldier to a dog who refused to abandon the mission. Cole closed the cedar box and pressed his palm lightly against Rex's head. All right, he said quietly. Show me what he left behind. Rex turned toward the rear of the cabin, and without hesitation, Cole followed. Cole waited until the rain eased before stepping back out into the clearing. His mind felt wired, every thought running in tight, controlled patterns the way they used to before deployment. The cedar box sat open beside him, its contents spread across the porch like pieces of a puzzle he hadn't realized he'd already begun solving. Rex paced near the tree line, not restless but alert, checking the perimeter the way a trained operative checks blind spots. Every so often, he returned to Cole's side, as if confirming that the man holding Kepler's letter hadn't vanished in the storm too. Cole lifted the USB drive between his fingers, a sliver of metal that felt heavier than a weapon. Its tape label showed no name, just a string of handwritten numbers. Government issue style, field cataloging, evidence logs, exactly the type of thing someone would kill to retrieve. He slipped it into his pocket, then opened the satellite photos again. At first glance, they showed nothing extraordinary. Ridges, vegetation lines, streams. But when Cole held them against Kepler's map, he saw it. The subtle patterning in the soil, irregular shading around the ridge base, and straight line scoring where no machinery should have been. He knew those marks: illegal trenching, covert drilling, done by people who didn't want their name attached to environmental crime. A memory surfaced, sharp and unexpected. Cole's old commanding officer briefing him about American contractors operating overseas, companies that hid behind shell corporations, names whispered but never confirmed. One of them was Keldra Minerals, Cole sat back hard. He had heard that name once, years ago. A subcontractor with a record of accidental land collapses in foreign operations. A company suspected of bribing local officials to drill rare earth deposits without proper clearance. If they were here, under West Virginia Ridge, then whatever Kepler found was not just dangerous, it was valuable. Cole reached for his phone, powered it on, and searched through a spotty signal. The results came slowly, but when they did, his stomach sank. Dr. Simon Kepler, missing 8 months, last seen conducting geological surveys in a remote area linked to Keldra minerals. His disappearance had been written off as a hiking accident. The article included only one photo of him. Cole recognized the man immediately. Weathered smile, determined eyes. This was the man who had written him a letter from beyond the grave. The next headline hit harder. Whistleblower claims Keldra Minerals conducting illegal rare earth extraction. Federal investigation opened. Whistleblower remains unnamed for safety. Cole exhaled. Kepler had tried to expose them, and the moment he did, he vanished. Rex stopped pacing and sat in front of him, his posture straight, his eyes fixed on Cole with unsettling certainty. Cole looked at the scars on Rex's flank, tracing them with his eyes. Long-healed but unmistakable. Bullet graze. Burn from a hot pipe. Shrapnel cut. You weren't someone's pet, Cole said softly. You were deployed. Rex lowered his head. Not in submission, never in submission, but in memory. Cole reached slowly, carefully, letting Rex choose whether to close the distance. The shepherd didn't move, didn't flinch, but his breathing changed, almost imperceptibly, but Cole felt it in the space between them. Recognition. Permission. He ran a hand gently across Rex's neck. Beneath the weathered fur, he felt the dense muscle of a dog used to carrying weight, running long distances, enduring things most men couldn't. You worked with him, Cole murmured. You were his K9. Rex blinked once, the closest he ever came to speaking. Cole sat back, staring at the cabin, the box, the ridge behind it. Everything snapped into place with painful clarity. This shack wasn't abandoned. It was a forward operating post, a lookout, a hiding place for the only evidence Kepler had left. It had been built to protect the ridge, and Keldra had been hunting it. Cole stood abruptly, adrenaline rising like heat under the skin. He took the topographic map, smoothed it across the porch, and traced Kepler's red markings. The circles, the warnings, the coordinates marked twice. Everything pointed to one truth. There was an underground mineral deposit beneath this mountain. Rare, valuable, highly unstable. And if Keldra drilled it, the water table would collapse, pulling the ridge with it. Small towns would lose their wells. Forest wildlife would be wiped out. Springs would choke with debris. The land would die. Rex rose at the same time Cole did, mirroring him like a partner ready for orders. Cole's voice dropped low. We can't let them near it. Rex stepped beside him, shoulder brushing his leg. For the first time, Cole felt something shift inside him. Not the familiar ache of loss, not the numb weight of survival. Purpose. The kind that felt old, inherited. The kind that ran through bloodlines. His father and Kepler had stood guard before him. Now it was his turn. A sudden rustle cut through the ridge. Rex stiffened, body dropping low, gaze locked on the tree line. Cole grabbed his knife. The sound was not wind, not animal. Heavy steps, deliberate. Someone moving towards the clearing. Cole moved sideways, positioning himself between Rex and the porch corner. Another footstep. Closer. Rex's ears pricked sharply, and he let out the softest warning sound Cole had heard from him yet, a low breath through his teeth. Cole whispered, "You smell them." Rex didn't need to answer. A shadow shifted between the trees. Cole tightened his grip. But before the figure appeared, the footsteps stopped. Silence pressed down. Then the shadow retreated. Rex held still for several long seconds before easing his stance, but he didn't fully relax. His eyes stayed fixed on the forest, waiting. Whoever it was had been watching. Close enough to assess. Close enough to track the cabin. Cole became very aware that he was holding evidence of federal crimes in plain sight. He gathered the journal, the photos, the USB, shoved them into his pack. Rex followed him into the cabin, closing the distance only trained partners share. Cole lifted a loose floorboard and placed the pack in the hollow beneath it, covering it with dust and old cloth. When he stood again, Rex was waiting in the center of the room, staring at him with unwavering intensity. Cole swallowed. "This isn't just your fight anymore, it's ours." Rex stepped forward, his eyes steady and unwavering. And in that silent exchange, Cole understood something deeper than words. The ridge had not been left to him by accident. He had been chosen. By Kepler, by circumstance, and most of all by the dog who refused to abandon the truth. It began with silence, the wrong kind. The ridge usually breathed even after dark, whispering through the pines, letting the creek murmur its way down the slope. But that night, everything held its breath at once. Even the pups stopped rustling in their nest as if the mountain itself sensed what was coming. Cole was sorting gear by the dying fire when Rex stood up without a sound. His entire body went rigid, tail straight, ears forward, nose cutting the air like a blade. Not fear. Recognition. Someone was here. Cole grabbed the pack with Kepler's evidence, slinging it across his shoulder. Rex stepped between him and the cabin doorway, showing him where to look. Not toward the trees, but toward the darkness behind them. Engines. Low. Controlled. Too careful to be local. Then the lights came. 3 beams sweeping through the forest like knives, cutting across trunks and brush. Cole ducked instinctively, pulling Rex close. Shadows moved behind the glare, men in dark gear moving in tight formation. Keldra had sent a team. Mercenaries, not amateurs, the kind hired to erase, not capture. One man raised his hand. Another nodded. A third walked toward the cabin with a steel canister. Gasoline. Cole's pulse hammered, but his mind went cold, disciplined. He grabbed Rex's collar lightly. "We go now." Rex didn't hesitate. He bolted toward the back of the cabin, leading Cole to the collapsed section of wall where Kepler's escape route began. Cole scooped the pups into the sling across his chest, tightening the straps as their tiny bodies squirmed in fear. Behind them, the first flames ignited, climbing the wall with terrifying speed. Cole dropped into the narrow crawl space, boots hitting the earth, shoulders scraping the timber beams. Rex followed close, his breath steady, his body moving low and silent. The tunnel curved, sloped downward, then leveled into a cold passage lit only by the faint glow of fire behind them. The smoke followed. Cole covered the pups with his arm, crawling faster. Rex raced ahead, then doubled back, urging him forward with sharp nudges. Cole had seen dogs in battle zones before. None moved like Rex. The shepherd wasn't reacting. He was navigating a route he knew by memory. They reached the end of the tunnel. Rex froze. Cole almost crashed into him. Then he saw it. Light outside. Shadows. Footsteps. Keldra had anticipated the escape route. A man stepped into view at the tunnel mouth, rifle raised. Cole shoved the pups deeper into the sling and lunged sideways, pulling Rex with him as the gunfire tore through the opening, showering dirt and splinters. Rex pressed against Cole's side, not in fear but bracing for a break. Cole whispered, "Go." Rex shot forward like a released spring. The shepherd slammed into the gunman's arm just as he fired again, teeth locking onto thick fabric and dragging the barrel down. Cole launched himself from the tunnel, hitting the man square in the chest and driving him into the ground. The fight was brutal. Fast. quiet." Cole disarmed him with a knee to the wrist, an elbow to the throat. The man collapsed, gasping. Rex released his arm and pivoted instantly toward the trees. More coming. Cole heard them before he saw them. 2, maybe 3, moving fast. He grabbed the fallen rifle, slung it across his back, and followed Rex into the dark woods. The ground sloped sharply uphill, roots twisting underfoot. The pups whimpered against his chest as he ran. A flashlight beam cut through the trees behind them. Then another. Voices. Radio static. Orders. They were closing in. Rex darted in and out of the underbrush, guiding Cole left at a rocky outcrop, then right through a thicket that tore at Cole's jacket but masked their trail. The shepherd checked behind them every few seconds, reading danger before Cole could hear it. But the mercenaries were trained. They fanned out, forming a half-circle, pushing Cole uphill. He realized the trap too late. Rex halted at the ridge edge, paws scraping gravel. Cole skidded to a stop beside him. A cliff dropped away beneath them, 30 feet straight down into blackness. Lights closed in from behind, casting the trees into sharp silhouettes. A voice came from the dark. "End of the line, Harlow." Cole's blood iced. They knew his name. He shifted the pups into one arm and reached for the rifle with the other. Rex stepped forward, placing himself between Cole and the lights, shoulders squared, head low, every muscle coiled like wire. Cole whispered, "Not yet. Stay with me." But Rex was already making calculations, measuring distance, enemy count, possible outcomes. Cole felt it in the way the dog's breath changed. He knew Rex was ready to sacrifice himself. "No." Cole tightened his grip on the rifle. "They're not taking you. Or the pups. Or Kepler's truth." A shot cracked through the trees. Cole dove behind a boulder, shielding the pups. Dirt exploded near his shoulder. He fired back once, not to kill, but to disrupt their advance. 2 beams jerked sideways. Rex broke left, fast as a ghost, circling behind the closest mercenary. A scream tore through the night as the man fell, weapon clattering. The others pivoted instantly, firing toward the sound. Cole rose and dashed to Rex's side, grabbing the dog's collar before he pushed too far into danger. Voices roared. They were regrouping. Cole backed toward the cliff again. Trapped, outnumbered, outgunned. Rex pressed into him, not in fear, but solidarity. The shepherd's heartbeat was steady against Cole's leg, ready for whatever came next. Cole looked at the dark drop behind them, then at Rex, then at the closing line of mercenaries. "We don't fight to win," he whispered. "We fight to protect." Rex's ear twitched. Agreement. The men stepped closer, weapons raised. Cole tightened his grip on Rex's collar. The pups curled against his chest, the truth buried in his pack. Then all 3 took one step back. Off the edge, they dropped into darkness together as the mercenaries lunged forward, too late to stop them, and the ridge swallowed their fall. The fall did not last as long as Cole feared. His boots hit a sloped ledge of soil, then slid through wet leaves until he crashed against a fallen log. Pain exploded across his shoulder. Rex tumbled beside him, rolling once before landing on all fours, shaking off dirt. The pups pressed tight against Cole's chest, terrified but alive. Above them, flashlights burned along the ridge edge. Angry voices split the night. "Find them!" Cole held Rex still, tightening his grip. "Don't make a sound!" But the woods shifted. A new noise sliced through the tension, a rhythmic chop of air increasing by the second. Rex lifted his head. His ears snapped forward with sudden recognition. Cole heard it too. A helicopter. Not Keldra's. The pitch was different, cleaner, federal. A searchlight burst through the treetops, sweeping the ridge. The mercenaries scattered instantly, attempting to hide beneath the canopy. Too late. A loudspeaker erupted. "This is the FBI Environmental Crimes Unit. Drop your weapons and stand down." Cole exhaled, barely believing what he heard. The helicopter lowered, kicking up leaves and dirt. Ropes dropped from both sides, agents fast roping into the clearing like steel anchors descending from the sky. Rex growled low, not in fear but urgency. Movement ahead. One mercenary broke from cover, sprinting down slope toward Cole's position. Cole shoved the pups under the fallen log, then pressed his back to a tree, waiting for the angle. But Rex moved first. He surged forward like a bullet fired from instinct alone. The shepherd slammed into the man's legs, knocking him off balance. The rifle clattered. Cole tackled the man a heartbeat later, pinning him until 2 agents stormed in and hauled him away. More agents swept the woods, each step controlled, weapon lights cutting through the smoke still drifting from the burned cabin above. A woman's voice called out behind them. "Cole Harlow?" Cole straightened slowly, chest heaving, one arm wrapped around the sling of pups. Rex stayed beside him, eyes fixed on the newcomers but body calm. The woman approached, badge clipped to her jacket. Special Agent Dana Walsh. "I've been looking for you." Cole stared. "For me?" Walsh nodded once. "We've been tracking Dr. Kepler's disappearance for 8 months. He was ours before he vanished. High-level whistleblower, environmental scientist, federal consultant. We lost him near this ridge. Then your name came up during an internal flag." Cole's pulse hammered. He clutched the satchel tight. "You knew he was here. We suspected. But we didn't know he left evidence behind." Walsh said, eyes glancing at Rex, or that he had a partner. Rex stepped forward, tail low, no hostility. Walsh's expression softened. "This is the dog he wrote about." Cole blinked. "Kepler mentioned him." Walsh nodded. "Many times. He said if he didn't survive long enough to hand over the proof, the dog would lead the right person to it." Cole swallowed hard. The words from the letter came back to him with sharp clarity. "If I don't make it, trust the dog." Walsh lifted her hand. "May I?" Cole gave a small nod. She knelt in front of Rex. The shepherd didn't flinch. He pressed his nose against her hand, as if confirming what Cole had felt all along. Rex understood people. He chose the ones who mattered. Cole opened the satchel with steady hands. Inside lay Kepler's journal, the hand-drawn maps, satellite photos, and the small silver USB drive. Walsh's breath hitched. "You have no idea what you just carried off that mountain." She whispered, "This is enough to bury Keldra minerals from the top down." Cole handed the evidence to her. All of it. No hesitation. "They burned the cabin. They tried to kill us. They're still up there." Walsh stood tall, jaw tightening. Not for long. Behind her, agents guided handcuffed mercenaries toward a landing zone. The helicopter's searchlight held steady on the ridge, capturing the chaos that Keldra had tried to bury. Rex stayed pressed to Cole's side, eyes following every motion, every threat still lurking in the shadows. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was reporting for duty. Walsh turned back to Cole. "You're coming with us. We need your statement, and his." She looked straight at Rex when she said it. Cole almost laughed at the absurdity. A dog giving testimony. And yet, somehow, it felt right. Rex had seen everything. Rex had survived everything. And Rex had led Cole straight to the truth. As they walked toward the extraction point, one of the detained mercenaries snarled from behind a pair of agents. "You think this changes anything? Keldra built half the economy up here. They'll bury this case." Walsh stopped, eyes cold. "They can try. But now we have their maps, their files, and the man they failed to kill 8 months ago." She nodded toward Rex. "And we have the dog who outsmarted all of you." The mercenary looked away, jaw clenched. The helicopter wind whipped through the trees as Cole and Rex stepped toward the loading platform. The pups were lifted into the arms of a medic. Cole climbed inside next, Rex following tight at his heel. Walsh secured the evidence in an armored case and joined them. As the chopper lifted off, Cole looked down at the ridge. The burned remains of the cabin smoldered like a dying ember. The forest around it glowed in the spotlight, revealing all the paths Kepler had walked, all the trails Rex had guarded, all the secrets Keldra had tried to erase. Rex rested his head on Cole's knee. Cole placed a hand on his neck, steady and grateful. "You saved all of us, buddy." Rex closed his eyes, just for a moment. Behind them, the ridge grew smaller. Ahead of them, an entire corporation was about to fall. And at the center of it all stood one German shepherd who had guarded the truth long before Cole ever arrived. The world moved faster than Cole expected. One morning he woke up in a small medical tent outside the FBI field base in Charleston. Rex curled at his side like a sentinel carved out of muscle and instinct. By afternoon, the truth that had nearly gotten them killed was plastered across every major news network in America. Illegal mineral extractions, forged permits, radioactive contamination risks, the destruction of protected waterways. And at the center of it all, a whistleblower named Dr. Simon Kepler, declared missing for 8 months, finally vindicated. Every anchor said his name with a mix of awe and disbelief, but the other name repeated just as often surprised Cole. Cole Harlow, former Marine, the man who uncovered the Ridge conspiracy. Cole felt the weight of that each time he stepped out of the tent. Reporters camped near the perimeter fence. Cameras angled high, hoping to capture even the shadow of him. Microphones waited just inches behind the security line. He ignored them all. Even when an agent offered to coordinate a formal interview, Cole shook his head. "I'm not your headline," he said quietly. "I just want to go home." Agent Dana Walsh didn't push. She had the evidence, the country had the truth, and Cole had risked enough. The pups were already under 24-hour veterinary care at the Bureau's specialized canine medical wing. The facility wasn't large, but it was spotless, warm, and staffed by people who treated every injured animal like a fallen soldier. Cole visited them every morning, Rex sitting rigidly beside him, tail twitching whenever a medic came too close. The vets joked that Rex was the strictest parent they'd ever worked with. Cole didn't disagree. The pups were healing, thriving, safe. For the first time since the attack, Rex allowed himself to breathe around them. He checked each one with gentle nudges, counted them, circled their crates, then lay at Cole's feet, head on his paws, eyes still watchful but softer now. He had done his job. The worst was over. Still, Cole felt the same tension coiled beneath his ribs, the same restless alertness that war had carved into him. More than once he caught himself scanning exits or tracking footsteps in gravel. Trauma didn't evaporate just because the danger did. But Rex stayed close, always within arm's reach. The shepherd matched his pace, mirrored his breaths, grounded him when the world around them spun too fast. There were moments Cole wondered who was healing whom. The news cycle didn't slow. Footage of agents carrying out boxes of files from Keldra's headquarters filled every screen. Executives were escorted into black SUVs, faces tight, suits crumpled from long hours of questioning. One interview slipped through from a former Keldra contractor. "We tried to warn them," he said, voice shaking. Kepler was right. The ridge would have collapsed. Across the country, outrage grew, protests formed, environmental groups mobilized, lawmakers drafted emergency protections. The entire nation watched, furious and unblinking. Then the announcement came. A press conference outside the Department of the Interior, flags waving, officials in dark suits standing shoulder to shoulder. Effective immediately, the West Virginia Ridge Conservation Zone is designated as federally protected wilderness. All extraction, development, and private claims are permanently banned. The cameras flashed. Reporters erupted. Cole watched the broadcast from a distance, standing near the base fence, Rex sitting beside him in the cool morning sunlight. The ridge appeared on the screen behind the officials in a sweeping drone shot, still scorched, still wounded, but alive. Walsh approached him quietly. "You did this," she said. Cole shook his head. "Kepler did. I just carried his torch a little farther." Walsh smiled. "You carried it through fire, Harlow. That counts for something." He didn't answer. He just looked down at Rex. The shepherd stared out across the base, chest rising and falling with controlled calm. His scars were visible under the fresh bandages. His fur still smelled faintly of smoke. Yet he held himself like a warrior who had faced the storm and walked out whole. He had been Kepler's guardian. Now he was Cole's. Later that afternoon, a journalist managed to slip close enough to call out through the fence. "Cole, they're calling you a hero. Do you have anything you want the country to know?" Rex bristled instantly, stepping in front of Cole. Cole placed a hand on the dog's back and answered with a steady voice that carried even through the wind. "Tell them the ridge is safe now. That's all that matters." The journalist opened his mouth to press further, but Rex gave a single sharp bark, deep and commanding. It wasn't aggressive, just final. The man stepped back. Cole exhaled, rubbing Rex's shoulder. "Yeah, you tell them, buddy." Days passed. The investigation deepened. Arrests multiplied. Leaked emails and hidden audio files revealed a network of corruption that stretched farther than anyone imagined. And through it all, Cole stayed out of the spotlight. He slept in a cot beside Rex. He walked the base at night when everything was quiet. He spent mornings with the pups, afternoons with the agents who needed details only he and Rex could provide. He didn't want thanks. Peace was enough, but peace had a way of circling back to him unexpectedly. On the 10th day, Walsh found him standing alone near the helipad, watching distant clouds roll over the horizon. "The ridge is waiting for you," she said. "It's protected now. No one will touch it again." Cole turned slowly. "And the cabin?" "Volunteers offered to rebuild it. Veterans, rangers, some civilians. They said they want to honor what happened there." Cole swallowed. "And Rex?" Walsh smiled. "He goes wherever you go, officially or not." Rex nudged Cole's hand, as if confirming the statement himself. Cole looked up at the mountains in the distance, the same mountains that once held his grief, his solitude, his escape. Now they held Kepler's legacy, Rex's loyalty, the pup's first breaths, and the truth that had survived an inferno. He breathed in deeply. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. "Let's go home," Cole whispered. Rex pressed his head against Cole's leg. The storm had passed, the truth had risen, and the ridge, scarred but unbroken, waited for its guardians to return. The new cabin rose slowly from the clearing, each board lifted by hands that wanted it there. Veterans Cole had never met drove in from 3 states away, saying they owed a Marine one. Park rangers hauled timber up the ridge in pickup beds that coughed smoke all the way up the incline. Locals brought food, blankets, and old tools that had lived longer than their owners. No one asked for explanations. No one asked for interviews. They simply worked. By late autumn, the frame of the cabin stood stronger than the first time Cole had ever seen it. The smell of cut pine drifted across the clearing as the morning sun hit the unfinished porch. Cole stood barefoot in the dew, running his fingers along the railing he'd sanded the night before. Behind him, Rex sat on the top step like it was his throne, his ears swiveling with the breeze. Steward of Ridge Sector C. That was the title they gave him. He had read it twice on the official federal document delivered in a thick envelope. A job with no uniform, no salary, no deadlines. A role reserved for someone who wasn't appointed by politics or boards, but by the land itself. Cole laughed the first time he saw it. They could have just said the ridge is yours. Watch over it. But the truth settled deeper than the words. This wasn't ownership. It was responsibility. The kind Kepler had carried alone until the darkness swallowed him. The kind Rex had carried even longer. Cole looked at the shepherd now. Rex sat tall, scars visible beneath his thickening winter coat. When volunteers talked about the fire, they didn't mention Cole first. They mentioned the dog, the one who stood against men with rifles, the one who didn't leave his post, the one who held a mountain secret long enough for the world to hear it. By the time the first snow grazed the ridge, the legend had already begun. People whispered it in ranger stations and local diners. That German shepherd protected more than a cabin. He protected a whistleblower's truth. He protected a mountain. Cole didn't argue. He didn't correct them. If anything, he felt the stories didn't go far enough. One afternoon, while stacking lumber behind the new cabin, he heard soft footsteps approach. They were too light to belong to a ranger, too quick to be a hiker. Cole turned. A teenage boy stood at the edge of the clearing, wearing a school windbreaker and holding a notebook so new the crease still shined. He blinked up at Cole, nervous but determined. "Mr. Harlow?" "Sir." Cole wiped his palms on his jeans. Something about the kid reminded him of his son, the way he stood too straight when trying to mask fear, the way he looked like he didn't quite belong in the world yet. "Can I help you?" Cole asked. The boy nodded quickly. "I'm Eli Turner from Ridgeview High. We're doing a project on local conservation heroes. My teacher said you might be the right person to talk to." Cole raised an eyebrow. Hero wasn't a word he'd ever worn easily. Rex moved beside him, inspecting the boy with a slow, silent pass. Eli didn't flinch. He held out a hand tentatively. Rex sniffed, then leaned forward and brushed his nose against the boy's fingers. Cole felt something unclench inside him. "You want to walk?" he asked. Eli nodded, flipping his recorder on as they started along the ridge trail. The wind swept between the branches, carrying the faint scent of snow. Rex trotted ahead, but always kept them in sight. "What made you stay?" Eli asked. Most people would have left after the fire. Cole kept his gaze on the trail. Ash still clung to some of the trees, scars nature hadn't healed yet. "Some places deserve a second chance," he said. "And some truths need someone to stand with them, even when it's hard." Eli scribbled quickly. "Did you know Dr. Kepler well?" "No, but Rex did." They paused at a clearing where the mountain opened into a wide view of the valley below. Cole leaned against a fallen log, arms crossed. "I didn't know what I was walking into," he said. "I just knew something was wrong, and a man I never met was counting on me, and a dog who lost everything still refused to leave his post." Eli looked at him, curiosity bright but cautious. "My teacher said you didn't fight back to win. You fought so the ridge could live." Cole let that settle. The truth was simpler than the story, but heavier than anything he'd carried in uniform. "Some battles aren't fought to win," he said. "They're fought because no one else will stand there, and because someone, somewhere, has to hold the line." Eli's pen slowed. "You think Rex knows what he did?" Cole looked at the shepherd, now lying on a slab of sun-warmed stone at the edge of the clearing, watching the world below like a guardian carved from the ridge itself. "He knew the night the fire came," Cole said quietly. "And he knows now. Dogs don't forget what they stand for." Eli's eyes softened. He turned off the recorder. "Thank you, Mr. Harlow, for everything." Cole nodded. The boy headed back down the path, but not before giving Rex a final look of awe. When the kid disappeared into the trees, Cole sat beside Rex, rubbing the fur behind his ears. The shepherd leaned his weight into Cole's hand, a silent bond anchored by fire, grief, and truth. The ridge stretched before them, scarred but alive. A place worth fighting for, a place that finally had someone to watch over it. Cole whispered, "You're still guarding, aren't you?" Rex's tail thumped once against the rock. A slow, steady beat. Still watching, still listening, still keeping the truth alive. The afternoon light drifted across Ridge Sector C like a warm breath, soft and unhurried. The cabin stood steady now, its fresh cedar boards glowing against the long shadow of the tree line. Cole sat on the newly built porch steps, hands resting loosely on his knees, the rhythm of quiet settling around him. Rex lay pressed against his side, head lifted just enough to track every flicker of movement across the yard. His breathing was slow, even, but his eyes never stopped working. Watching. Reading the ridge as though it were a language only he and a few ghosts could understand. The three pups, though pups no longer, tumbled through the clearing in a wild chase, all legs and confidence, tripping over each other in bursts of joy. Their coats had filled in, thick and shining, the last traces of smoke long washed away. Sometimes Cole wondered if they understood how close they'd come to not existing at all. Maybe that was why they ran like they owed the world their energy. Eli Turner stood at the bottom of the steps, cradling his notebook to his chest. He'd come back for one final question, the kind he said he couldn't put into words in his school paper unless he understood it himself. He hesitated before asking it. "Mr. Harlow?" Cole looked up. Eli's voice held that same mixture of awe and innocence he'd had the first day he walked into the clearing. "Yeah, kid." Eli glanced at Rex, then the pups, then the ridge behind them. He wet his lips, gathering courage. "Do you think Rex knows he saved more than just the forest? I mean, everything that came after. The truth, the people, you." The question hung there, soft but heavier than it sounded. Cole let the silence breathe. He reached down, rubbing the ridge of bone behind Rex's ear, feeling the shepherd lean just slightly into the touch. The old scar beneath the fur was warm. "He knew the first day," Cole said quietly. "The rest of us just needed time to catch up." Eli nodded like something inside him finally clicked. He closed his notebook gently, as though the answer wasn't just for the assignment, it was for him. "Thank you, sir." Cole nodded. "Safe trip down." Eli turned back toward the trail, and Rex watched until the boy disappeared between the pines. Only then did the shepherd rest his head on Cole's boot, a slow exhale slipping from his chest. The pups eventually wore themselves out and circled back, collapsing into a tangled heap beside the steps. Cole leaned back against the porch post, letting the mountain air carry through him. The wind carried the scent of pine needles, cold water, and something older, something that felt like belonging. "You did good, buddy," he murmured. Rex's ear twitched. He didn't need praise. Guardians rarely do. They just stay until the job is done. And then they stay longer, just in case. The ridge no longer felt like a place Cole escaped to. It felt like a place he'd been chosen by, a place where ghosts quieted and truth lived in the bark of a dog, the map of a mountain, the echo of a man who'd died trying to protect it. Cole took a long breath. Some guardians wear uniforms, some carry rifles, some leave behind notebooks and warnings, and some just refuse to abandon what matters. The sun dipped, spreading gold across Rex's coat. Cole watched the horizon shift from amber to blue, the same way he'd watched battlefields change color in the last hours before dawn. Only this time, the quiet wasn't a threat. It was a promise. He whispered, almost to himself, almost to the ridge. "We're home." Rex lifted his head, pressed his muzzle against Cole's arm, and gave one slow, deliberate thump of his tail. Still watching, still guarding, and maybe in a way only dogs understand, still healing the man who never expected a second chance. Cole looked into the camera of the world, into the invisible audience of anyone who might hear this story someday, and let the final truth settle. What's your story with a loyal pet? If this one spoke to you, stay with us. Subscribe to German Shepherd, because loyalty like this deserves to be remembered.